would like to listen to or download any or all of Power at Work's blogcasts in podcast form, they are available for streaming and download on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Overcast. Just search Power at Work on any podcast platform and enjoy all of Power at Work's podcasts. While you're there, 2 things we would like you to do. First, subscribe, and that way you won't miss any Power at Work podcasts. Second, please give Power at Work a 5-star rating, a like, a love, whatever is the tool that your podcast provider gives you. It helps others who care about workers and worker power to find Power at Work's content. They will be grateful, and so will we. Hello, powerful people, and welcome back to Power at Work. I'm Seth Harris from the Burns Center for Social Change. Welcome to the Power Half Hour live on LinkedIn and published for posterity on poweratwork.us. The Power Half Hour brings you more voices, more news, and more worker power analysis in just 30 minutes. I've got an expert panel of 3 guests who I will introduce to you in just a moment for our video audience. They are arrayed before you, and this is quite a picture. I mean, we've got different shades of lighting, and I mean, it's really kind of an interesting tableau that we've developed here. I like it. The panelists are going to talk about the big stories and the biggest developments of the last few weeks that affect worker power, workers, and unions. And we're going to talk about some important developments that are coming down the road that are going to arrive sometime in the near future. And then at the very end, as a teeny weeny little thank you to our guests, they will have an opportunity for shameless plugs and shout outs. And for the holiday, we have one very brief added question this week. We'll get to that before shameless plugs and shout outs. For shameless plugs and shout outs, they can promote whoever or whatever they would like. They can even promote themselves. We encourage self-promotion here on Power at Work. At the end of this hour discussion, we're going to go to Power Half Hour Overtime, right? If there are questions from our live audience, or if there are any questions sent in to us by our subscribers by email during the course of the last couple of weeks, we're going to ask them here. And that's going to happen in about 30 minutes at the end of this conversation, more like 28 minutes at this point, and we'll go into overtime. But now, even though we've lost one of them, and I'm hoping that she's going to come back, hopefully Anushka is going to track her down. We're going to see if we can do that. Let's meet the people who are going to make you smarter. From Fort Wayne, Indiana, we've got the host of the My Labor Radio podcast and an active and activist member of the United Auto Workers. It's our friend, Mark Gevaart. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Seth. Thank you very much for having me. Glad to be here for a holiday week.
Fantastic to have you here for the short week, right? Because you're not
right.
You can lay it all out on the line here because you're going to have a couple of days to recover. So it's a lot easier. And from Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, he's the Ralph Denton Professor of Law and Director of the Workplace Law Program at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, William S. Boyd School of Law. Yes, he's the guest with the longest introduction of any of our guests on any of our shows. It's our buddy, Ruben Garcia. Welcome back, Ruben.
Thanks for having me, Seth. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be seen. And let me say, emerging from out of the ether, from the city of brotherly love, and I would say sisterly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She's a labor reporter for In These Times magazine and a regular labor columnist for Teen Vogue. She's also an author and a great friend and supporter of Power at Work. It's Kim Kelly, everybody. Hi, Kim.
I'm back. It shut down in the middle, but then it let me sneak back in. So, and it's not the task. So it's cross fingers. I'm here for now.
Can I just say, I fear for the technology that tries to keep Kim Kelly from her audience. I mean, there she goes again. Yeah. I said that, and then the technology took her away from us. All right, we're going to plow ahead.
The technology overlords are back.
I'm telling you.
They're listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Elon Musk, I know you're out there somewhere. All right, let's go to topic number 1. Let's go. Oh, my goodness, we've lost Ruben as well now. I have no idea what's going on. Is
What's
this
your aftershave? What are you wearing today?
it's got to be I have an abrasive personality, but I don't know what's going on. Anushka, maybe you can track down both
You
of
know
them at the
she's
same
taking
time.
care of it. You know she's working right
I
now
know
hard
she
at
is.
that.
I know she is. Okay, so Mark, we're going to start. This may end up being a one-on-one interview. I didn't know that we were going to
Here
do
we
it that
go.
way. So, Mark, let's look over our shoulder and in the rearview mirror. What was the most important or the most interesting development, or the biggest news story relating to unions, worker power, or worker collective action over the last 2 weeks?
I'm going to go to a little bit of a depressing subject here because it's worker power, but it's power that's lost with the death of Amber Check from Kaikato, Minnesota, suburban Minneapolis, St. Paul area. She was killed at work while she was welding. Someone who she works with doesn't like her and kills her and then admits to it and is currently incarcerated. The point of all this is that for all the great labor victories we have, we still have to look out for our sisters and brothers in the workplace so something like this doesn't happen. If anything's transpired in the last 15 days for me since this death is learning about Amber and her life, but also learning about Amanda Webster, who was killed in Florence, Kentucky on a job site at a hotel while she was getting ready to go back to the job site. And then Audie Hicks in 2017, who was a carpenter apprentice. All of these young women killed at work. I think it's important that we forget the idea of all the great wins and victories. That's important, but also looking out for our sisters at work and making sure that we understand what their days are like. Since this time, I've had extended conversations with a number of ladies I work with and learned about some heinous stories of things once I brought this death up to them about things they've felt and gone through in the workplace over the last 20 years or so. Things get better, but these are just the reminders that we're not out of the woods yet. We've got plenty of work to do. Safe workplaces for equipment, protective gear, things like that. But this is another level of it. So we have to keep our vigilant there. Us, guys, call your boys out. If it's a problem and someone brings it to you, listen to them, believe them. I'm wearing blue on a Tuesday today. This is our new thing that a lot of sisters in the building trades have come to. Amber Check was a welder, and a lot of the welders that I follow on TikTok and other social media have donned blue Tuesdays now in memory of her. So it's not a great story, but it's one that we have to talk about because I think it's important for people to understand that there's safety things we always fight for, but these are things that we can help each other with to be safer, especially for our sisters in any workplace.
So just to make sure I understand this, were these domestic violence incidents? Were these workplace violence
No,
incidents?
they were all
What was it
workplace
that?
violence. Yeah, so the Miss Webster, who was killed in Florence, Kentucky, was at a hotel by herself as a worker who was getting ready to do her construction work the next day and fending for a family that's back home, and she was killed at that hotel. In the case of Audie Hicks in 2017, she was killed by another journey person carpenter who didn't like her on the job site. Same with Amber Check here in Minnesota, another worker who didn't care for her. In this case, 3 males attacking women in the job site. So depressing as that sounds, it's important to note that they were only workplace acquaintances. They did not have relationships with these women. So it's a hot topic.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. Let me shout out my friend Jordan Barab. Jordan and I
Yeah.
have been working together for many, many years. Jordan was on Capitol Hill with the House Education and Labor Committee when he was there. He was also the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And in between his time in government, Jordan, and it's true now, runs a blog called Confined Spaces. And Jordan recounts some of the horrible workplace accidents, injuries, illnesses,
Wow.
murders that occur, and also talks about occupational safety and health policy and occupational safety and health strategy. So everybody go take a look at Jordan's Confined Spaces.
Yeah.
He does a terrific job. He's been doing it for many, many years. It's the best single source of information about occupational safety and health from a worker progressive perspective. So I encourage everybody to take a look at that. So we have
Thank you.
Kim back, but not on camera. Kim, can you hear me? we don't have Kim. We have Kim.
We have her in
we have
name
Kim's
only.
name, and I see
Ruben's
Ruben
back.
is. Ruben is. I mean, Ruben, where people are disappearing and rejoining, and
I know, but I'm back. I will not speak against the technology overlords again. Of course.
See, that's what you get. Okay. So we are on still question number one. Mark gave us his answer. Ruben, we're looking over our shoulder. We're looking in the rearview mirror. What was the most important or most interesting development or the biggest news story relating to unions, worker power, or worker collective action over the last 2 weeks?
Well, yeah, sorry again for that interruption. And of course, as your embed in Las Vegas, I have to make it a story about hospitality, labor, and worker power and federal regulation. So as we've talked about before on your show, the no tax on tips promise of the Trump administration is now coming to roost. And it's, of course, not as many things that a very messy rollout.
No, go ahead. You're okay.
I'm okay. Okay. Largely because, of course, of the fact that when you have this idea of no tax on tips, you also have to make sure that people can get overtime. And that's not something the administration has prioritized in the same way that they have tried to prioritize no tax on tips. So if people can't get overtime, they can't get the tax break on tips, in short. And the Biden administration attempt to expand overtime access it was squashed by the Trump administration when they came in, and they are working on a new rule. And of course, as the federal courts in Texas are wont to do, also squashed the rule of the Biden administration. And the Trump administration, of course, is not appealing that very quickly because they're hoping to have their own rule. So in short, many people are not happy with how this is going, and it's going to get worse because the current rules will expire, and the administration just proposed a new rule November 21st. But in the meantime, there's going to be this gap of people who can't get overtime, and built into the new rule, here's the worker power angle, is the fact that it exempts both collective bargaining employees who have a collective bargaining agreement, and workers who get overtime through state and local rules, right, which are usually much more generous than the federal rules. So the culinary union here in Las Vegas, of course, is not happy about this. There are, of course, a lot of political goings on with them and the administration and the IRS and the Treasury Department. So we will see. And that is the big story, at least maybe nationally, but of course also here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's a big story for hospitality workers and other tipped employees around the country. Tipped employees, this was never a real benefit for the overwhelming majority of tipped employees. Most of them make too little to benefit. There are a few who make too much to benefit, given that there are income caps. And this overtime rule is going to be as miserly as Ebenezer Scrooge. Oh, wait, it's the wrong holiday. All right, we've got Kim Kelly back. Let's really quickly go to her while she's with us. All right, Kim, we're still on question number one. We're looking back the last couple of weeks. What's the biggest story affecting workers and worker power?
So for me, I mentioned being in Puerto Rico a second ago. Earlier, the day before that, I went out there for a conference. I was in York, PA, with a big group of Starbucks workers who blockaded the distribution center out there, which was a very big deal. This was the largest distribution center, I think, in the world, at the very least in the U.S., and it's a big, militant, very clear escalation in the strike that they're on, a nationwide strike. I think it's day 10 or 11. Definitely have blown past week 2 or week 1, and it was pretty wild. There were trucks backed up, trying to get in, being turned away, giving up. There were busloads of striking Starbucks workers from from Philly. I was on that one from Pittsburgh. Some folks came out all the way from Atlanta, came out for this action, and it was really interesting to see them escalate in this way, going straight to this choke point to the supply chain. You know, we've seen Starbucks workers go on maybe one-day actions. We've seen their public campaigns. Now they're on their first indefinite strike, or their open-ended strike. And there's over 1,000 workers out right now. More keep joining. That's what I'm keeping an eye on. I had a vested interest because I was out there, but also I think it's maybe the shot in the arm that labor needs right now, given the general gloom enveloping our world.
Right.
Now, was this a picket line, and were they trying to get truckers to honor the picket line, or was it literally a physical blockade where they were stopping trucks that wanted to go in from going in and coming out?
It was, I did a little video on it for More Perfect Union, so you can see what was going on. But they were blocking the road. Like there was a picket line on the sidewalk of hundreds of workers, but there was a group that put their bodies out there. They sat down in the road, and no one got through for like 3 hours.
Wow, that's amazing.
That.
And let me also say thank you very much, Kim, for mentioning York, PA. We finally got a Power Half Hour my wife is going to watch because that's her hometown, and she's going to really identify with the story. York, PA was a great industrial city, small city, but a great industrial city, and then it got deindustrialized like so much of the American Midwest. So it's nice to see that fighting spirit coming back to York, Pennsylvania. All right, guests. Get out your telescopes. We're going to look around the corner, down the street, out to the horizon. What important story, and Mark, I'm starting with you. What important story or development or innovation or event is coming in the near-term future that our audience needs to know about?
Well, it's struggles in Chicago. One of the big things right now is Teamsters Local 705 represents 168 workers at Mauser. Now, Mauser is a packing factory where they'll repurpose metal 55-gallon drums. They'll clean them out, reuse them, things like that. They've been on strike for almost 5 months. And what did they end up doing? Closing the facility and moving work from that facility over 168 Teamsters to other facilities. So the Teamsters are working a little overtime now trying to find and help those folks find jobs. But as of November 21st, they lost their jobs. These are those small actions that we talk about all the time that's saying, oh, just this Starbucks, it's only that I don't have to worry about my Fort Wayne Starbucks. Those Starbucks folks are in some other town. They're on strike. They're not. I'm going to still go here. It's not. You can support that by not attending a Starbucks. In this case, Mauser, as a packing company, made sure that they decided to close that facility and move the work and wash it to some other facilities in the suburban Chicagoland area and just completely close it versus trying to do any kind of negotiating for wages, benefits, and or health and safety issues that they had open on the floor for those Teamsters. So every little action can have an action. You have action. You have power to do that. I tell everybody this. Don't sit by the sidelines. There's too many things going on now. You need to get in the game and get involved, especially in your community. There's somebody with a struggle somewhere. See what you can do to help out with that. My goal for everybody is to know that you can be involved. Don't sit back. Those folks are having a fight, and it's been an interesting transformation. I've been in contact with several of the folks that are Teamsters over there. They're having a very rough go of it, but you can make a difference in your locale. Just pay attention to what's going on in labor. You got to search for it. It's not in the mainstream media. Kim will tell you that all day long. We have to go find our resources to be able to learn about these things.
Yeah, Mark, exactly why we have you and our other guests on this show is because there's little pockets of union busting going on all across America. It's not all Amazon. It's not all Elon Musk and SpaceX or Tesla. It's not all the big companies. There are employers all over America who are blowing apart their employees' unions simply because they don't want to do business with them. They want to be able to maximize profits by squeezing their workers. So that's exactly why we do this show and why your podcast and Kim's reporting and the work that others in our world are doing in order to shine a light on these stories. It's absolutely critically important. All right, Ruben, looking off into the future, as you so often do as an academic. What's coming down the pike for workers and worker power and unions?
Well, it's sort of in the rearview mirror also in terms of all the union busting that's gone on at the federal government level. And so all the millions of union members who lost their unions in the recent months, thanks to the federal administration. But a little bit of hope in the last few weeks is the discharge petition for the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, and the possibility that federal worker and other government worker employee rights will be enshrined in statute. And
explain what
again,
you
with
mean
the
by a
changes-
discharge for the
So-
people who aren't denizens,
Yes, because you know, I'm
denizens
so
of
in the
my city.
Beltway.
Yeah, explain what you mean by a discharge petition.
It's basically the possibility to have a vote, just like there was a discharge petition on the release of the Epstein files recently, and that forced the vote on the Epstein files release. This is a bill that's had a number of different iterations over the last decade plus, and it is an attempt to both strengthen federal labor law, but also to enshrine in statute greater protections for federal and state and local workers to organize. And this, climate, of course, has led many federal workers to organize, even those, again, who are losing their bargaining rights, are joining unions at greater numbers than ever before. I wonder why. Job security, AI, all of these things that are threatening their jobs are causing them to the number of federal workers, of course, in unions is already higher than the national average. It's more like 25% of the federal workforce. Still high even with all the cuts. But this would again strengthen that protection, and of course with Congress possibly changing a little bit in the next few months or maybe a year, we might see it actually get through. And then, of course, the president, the labor self-proclaimed labor president, will have the ability to sign it, perhaps, or to continue decimating federal worker unions. So we will see what choices are made in the next year.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely that bill becomes law, because I think there's no chance that Trump signs it. Even if it could get through the Senate, I'm not sure how it gets through the Senate. I think it could get through the House, though, and that will send a powerful message. And there are other tools that they can use through the appropriations process and others in order to protect federal employee unions and make sure that federal employees get the unions that they want and deserve. But boy, it's really, really hard to legislate in America, and I think that bill is going to have a big struggle. But I'm so glad you lifted it up, because it's the biggest union busting story in American history. Absolutely no question about it. All right, Kim Kelly, since we have you haven't disappeared again. Look down the road and tell us what's coming our way in the future that's going to affect workers and worker power in unions.
Well, I know we only have a few minutes. I feel like I'm being pulled in so many directions. I'm watching so much, whether it's, unions or in the Northeast organizing to try and keep these wind power projects, or seeing folks dealing with ICE kidnapping immigrant workers, or here in Philly, we have a potential transit worker strike on the horizon again. But I'm glad that Ruben brought up DC and like this sort of federal arena, because what is still weighing on me the most, and I think it's perhaps falling by the wayside a little bit in the midst of all the other chaos, is this attack on regulations, on worker safety regulations specifically. I'm so glad you brought up Jordan Barab. He's like the goat of this stuff. But I think that so many people don't realize that this administration, this pro-worker administration, and Lori DeRemer Chavez DeRemer, this nice pro-union labor secretary, have been slashing and burning worker safety regulations and refusing to enforce the ones that we have managed to claw our way into existence, whether it's the federal heat standard, which we need so desperately because we do not have one. It's getting hotter. We know this. It's no surprise. Or the silica rule that coal miners and their allies have been pushing for decades, to limit the amount of exposure that coal miners have to deadly toxic silica dust that is fueling this current epidemic in Appalachia. There's so much that goes on sort of in this background, in this wonkier space of regulations and scheduling and public hearing, all this stuff that isn't quite as doesn't feel as immediate as a strike or an obvious evil CEO going after the workers. But there's all this stuff happening in the background, and I'm really glad that folks that have been working on these things are sticking to it and still trying. And I just always try to use whatever little platform I have to let people know, like, these bastards are up to something in the background. The regulatory agenda, this anti-regulation agenda we're seeing from the Trump regulation regime, that directly impacts to more worker injuries, more worker deaths. And that's eventually going to impact everyone, no matter whether you work at a slaughterhouse or a Starbucks.
Exactly correct. Exactly correct. I couldn't have said it better myself. I wouldn't have said it better myself if I'd had the chance. That's exactly right. Another set of things that we need to pay very, very close attention to by watching Jordan's reporting, your reporting, Kim, and other news that comes out of the anti-labor, what is now the anti-labor department, sadly to say. Okay, guests, we have a very special holiday question for you before we get to shameless plugs and shout outs. I'm just going to ask you for a name and one sentence in response to this very special holiday question, right? It's like a Hallmark question, right? It's like a Lifetime movie type of question. All right, here we go. Who is, and I'm going to start with you, Ruben, who is America's biggest labor turkey?
Well, he's known by a lot of other names, the Hatchet Man, the Grim Reaper, but I'm going to go with the director of OMB, Russell Vogt, on the federal worker theme.
Wow, that's a great one. That's such a good one. All right, Kim Kelly, who is America's biggest labor turkey?
This week, I have to say Brian Nichol, the CEO of Starbucks, who made $96 million in the past 6 months, but won't give the thousands of workers who made that money a break.
Wow. Oh, this is coming out so good. Gevaart, the bar is high. The bar is high. Who is America's biggest labor turkey?
Marvin Kaplan, your NLRB chair, who's doing absolutely nothing for workers.
Wow. Oh, that came out much better than I had hoped. That is a murder's row of white men screwing working people. That is really fantastic. All right, we've arrived at our final topic. It's shameless plugs and shout outs. Each guest will get just about a minute to plug or shout out anything or anyone they would like. Ruben Garcia, what is your shameless plug or shout out?
Well, once again, because I'm here in Las Vegas and have to represent, I have to shout out the 90th birthday of the Culinary Workers Union Local 226, chartered in November 1st, 1935. They've had a whole year of celebrations over this and also historical retrospectives on the role of the union in the immigrant rights movement, the way that the union has transformed the Las Vegas community, the way that, again, strikes have really set the table for greater organizing victories. And so that has been a very, it's all online, it's all, streamed live. And so the worker stories have just been amazing. They, just some numbers, they represent nearly 60,000 workers, mostly on the Strip, which was 100% unionized, and they are an immigrant workers union of 45% immigrant identified workers and 55% women, so a female-led union as well. And so they are again continuing to expand outside of the Strip, but again, it is a lot has to do with the what kind of protections, as we've been talking about, the NLRB or the courts can actually give them to deal with some of the sort of lawlessness that's going on around town. And so they'll continue again to work on those campaigns. But again, it's one of the great things about living. One of the reasons I came actually to live in Las Vegas is because of the Culinary Workers Union. So
that's why most people go. That's why most people go to Vegas, right? It's for the great unions, no question about it. Kim Kelly, what's your shameless plug or shout out?
I always have to mention my little book, Fight Like Hell, The Untold History of American Labor. It's still out there. Also, the paperback version of my Young Readers edition, Fight to Win, is coming out this spring, I think. They just sent me the cover. It's the same. But that's looming in the background. But since we're shouting out our hometowns or adopted hometowns, I do want to mention that we have so many SEPTA workers and transit workers here in Philly that just took a strike authorization vote. The government, the Republican dominated state legislator's been monkeying around with our public transit budget for the past year because they hate Philadelphia and the people who live here. So I'm just so proud that even in the face of all this chaos, those budget shortfalls, the threat of losing their paychecks, that the transit workers here that make Philadelphia run are ready to stand up for themselves if they are forced to do so.
Yeah, and they're almost certainly going to win any strike, and SEPTA should be paying attention to that fact. All right, Mark Gevaart, what's your shameless plug or shout out?
Well, I always go back to Max Alvarez and the work he does with The Real News. You can find him at therealnews.com, and he seems to pop up in all these amazing places. Now, he's Baltimore based, but where was he? He was in York, PA. He was around the corner with a bunch of these baristas who are on strike at Starbucks right now, always telling great stories. And I just tell people, look it up. It's going to be real easy. You will find that as one of your tools and pieces you use to stay in touch with things that are happening in labor. He's always peeling it back, finding the right story. He's also going to grab Kim along the way and bring her into the mix as well. So it's been fun to watch him over the last few years. And my last shameless plug will be for me, because it was December 10 years ago that I was just getting the ball rolling, so that I kicked off. So in 26, it's my 10th anniversary for doing a podcast on labor and just talking to people about the labor that they do, because there's important stories to tell from every American you meet.
That's a great one. We love Max on Power at Work. We've had him as a guest a number of times. Man, he just brings the energy, brings the power. Yeah. He's the embodiment of power at work. It's absolutely fantastic. He's a terrific guy. Everybody should go to The Real News and check out Max Alvarez and the great work that he's doing. All right, my shout out. Audience, stay up to date with Power at Work by subscribing right now. Go to poweratwork.us. A subscription box will pop up. If not, go to the bottom of the page. There's a subscription box at the bottom of the front page. Give us your name. Give us your email address. We promise we're not going to sell or give it away to anyone. It'll allow us to keep you up to speed on the content that's posted to Power at Work. Right now, we're going to stay a little bit longer for overtime. I'm going to close this out, and then we're going to go to overtime with your questions. Live audience, we've already got a live audience question. Live audience, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the comment box. Anushka will pull it out. She'll send it to me in our behind-the-scenes, very super secret chat. But for right now, for Kim Kelly, Mark Gevaart, Ruben Garcia, and our producer and Power at Work co-op, Anushka Srinivasan, thank you for joining Power Half Hour. We'll see you on Power at Work again very soon. Stay tuned for overtime. But for right now, class is dismissed. All right, panelists, take a breath.
Nice.
take a little sip of something. We're going to go right into overtime. Take a little breather. I'll give you a little pause, and we have a live audience question and some questions by email from our subscriber base. We're glad to have them. Our audience question comes from Power at Work supporter and friend Ben Weber. Ben is really good about endlessly posting to promote the work that we do here on Power at Work, and we're so grateful for him. At least our blogcasts he's able to promote. Okay, so Mark is coming back to your opening point when you were looking backwards over the last couple of weeks for the biggest story. And here's Ben's question.
Right.
Is there any sense of the macro trends on workplace violence against women over the last few decades?
Well, Kim, you weren't here at that moment when I talked about it, but I'm wearing blue for Amber Check and her loss. There's a lot of sisters I follow who are all wearing blue. But to say from a macro perspective, for all the steps we go forward to making inroads to making sure that people are safe at work for equipment or chemicals or things like that, it's that argument that happens. So I blame the HR teams for not taking women and their complaints seriously. So, but it's also on the brothers that are in the same room. If you're seeing something that's going on that makes that sister uncomfortable, say something. I boggles my mind that something like these things can happen in a workplace, but you got to step up, gentlemen. We all have to. We have to take care of our sisters. We have to take care of each other, regardless of gender.
Yeah, in response to Ben's question, I'm not aware of the data on workplace violence. I'm not sure there really is good data on workplace violence. That's something that we have to look at.
Well, certainly not now. They're taking all those
yes.
people who keep those stats out of there. Yeah,
absolutely. And the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the state OSHA organizations would have that information, but I don't, if it exists.
Right.
And I'm not sure that there's separate reporting, but there might be, because employers are obligated under the law to report any workplace illness, injury, or death. So if there are workplace violence incidents, they are supposed to report it as part of their obligation under the OSHA Act. And I'll just say one other thing about it. One of the industries where there is a most serious problem is the healthcare industry. There is lots and lots and lots of violence against healthcare workers in our country. And it's not just focused on women, although primarily because you have a lot of women in the healthcare industry. So that's another place to take a look, is to see what the long-term trends have been. There is not a federal workplace violence standard that requires employers to guard against it. There have been efforts in the past, but there's never, and my understanding is that there is not a standard in place. That might be one of the reasons why we don't have the data. Okay, we have so Ben, I'm afraid the answer is we don't know. That's the bottom line answer, but we'll try and get you that. Okay, we have some questions from our email, and see if do we have any other. No, we have our email questions. Okay. We have a question about the Starbucks strike, picking up on Kim on your point, although this came in before you spoke. So I've been reading about a nationwide Starbucks strike. Do you have any idea how the strike is going? Also, is the union asking us to boycott, this is Mark's point before, is it asking us to boycott all Starbucks locations, even if they don't have a union, and are there other ways we can help? Boy, they got the right panel. They got the right panel for that last question. All right. So how's it going? Are we being asked to boycott Starbucks? And are there other ways we can help?
It's going. It's there. There's still, they have a lot of tools still left in their toolbox. I think it was just yesterday that a group of striking workers went to try and visit Brian Nichols, the CEO, at his office. And they were not welcomed in, unfortunately. But
I love those. Can I just say, I absolutely love those kinds of actions, because all these employers who are out there saying, oh, we want to hear from our workers. It's workplace worker involvement, worker participation. And then workers show up to talk to their boss like, oh, no, security. No.
So I'm so interested to see what actions they continue to take, and stores continue to join the strike. I think it was just a couple of days ago that 25 more joined, and they're about between 550 and 600 unionized stores in the country, so they still have plenty of room to add more and more workers. Also, just quickly, yes, we're boycotting. No contract, no coffee. Doesn't matter if they're union yet or not. We're not. We need to use our buying power as consumers and supporters to show that we're here with the workers. You have enough money. Until you start sharing it a little bit better, we're not giving you any more of ours. And I'm sure the fellows probably have some suggestions on ways to help too. But the workers are specifically asking folks, boycott, join the no contract, no coffee pledge, come out to their picket lines and their actions. They want community support, or even just, stop by like, hey, good job. Like they need all the love and the support they can get.
Absolutely.
And also,
on Starbucks coffee here, local Las Vegas brew here.
Right.
There you go.
So people don't understand. People who've never been out on strike don't know what it feels like when you are out on strike, and you can really feel alone. You can really feel under attack. So just an ordinary person who's a supporter going over, lending their support, saying, hey, I'm with you, honking their horn as they drive by, joining the picket line for a little while if you're out on your lunch break, or if it's before work or after work. Do you happen to know, Kim, where people can find the No Contract, No Coffee pledge online? Is there someplace they can find it online, or maybe you can search for it if you don't know off the top of your head?
They have a website. I think it's just No Contract, No Coffee, but you could search for it. They also have a hardship fund, for a strike fund for the workers. I think the union's helping out a little bit, but that's a lot of workers. So if you have a couple pennies to rub together, consider throwing the cost of a latte to the workers instead of going to a rival shop.
Well, let me just say, if people threw in the cost of a latte, all of those strikers would be millionaires. Those lattes are preposterously expensive, horrible. All right, Professor Garcia, I think this is a question for you, even though it's addressed more generically, but I think this is going to be your question. Does anyone know the status of the federal employee union's lawsuits to strike down Trump's union-busting executive order? Now, you talked about the discharge petition in the U.S. House of Representatives, but there are AFG and the other federal employee unions, American Federation of Government Employees and the other federal employee unions, are suing to strike down Trump's executive order that deprived, I think it's 2/3, maybe it's as many as 3/4 of federal employees of their unions. Do you know what the status of those lawsuits is right now?
Well, they're all over the place, of course, depending upon, when they were filed and what stage they're in and what they're challenging, because there was so many different fronts in terms of these sort of attack on federal workers' rights, that there was simply the, layoffs and so without any process, and then there was the executive order, and then there was basically the attempts to, schedule P or C or whatever it is, basically the Russell vote move to kind of make more of them
Schedule F
employees.
Schedule F, yeah.
So F, well, I'll remember that now. But in any case, that is, basically the short answer is they're all over the place. The theories, as I said, really depend upon what they're challenging. If you're talking about an executive order, there's all kinds of possible theories there in terms of, is this something that is subject to an executive order? Is this beyond the president's executive power? What's Congress's role in this? Kind of as I teach Constitutional Law 1 in the spring, we'll be talking about the division of power there between Congress and the president, and so-called, unitary executive theories that say the president can do everything he wants with regard to federal employees. And then there's the kind of more constitutional law, rights kind of backstop arguments in terms of, this is a violation of the freedom of association, the freedom of speech. And so those theories are also in there. And so it really just depends. But the problem, of course, with all of this is the Supreme Court's move earlier this year to say that any time a federal district court or appeals court sort of follows the law and says, hey, the president can't do this, they have to basically stay their own decision, or the court will stay it for them while the court can decide it and actually evaluate it in a year or year and a half or so, and actually come to a decision about whether this is actually legal or not. So this, again, this rule on interim stays for lower court decisions that are simply applying precedent is really, of course, creating more uncertainty and, of course, giving more power to the U.S. Supreme Court itself to basically decide all these questions in a year or 2 years or whenever it actually gets figured out up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good analysis. Thank you. And the direct answer to the question is, depends which lawsuit you're talking about, I think, right? There are a lot of different lawsuits out there. Okay, Kim, here's one for you. I guess somebody knew that you were going to be, people, because of our advertising, knew that you were going to be on. Kim, what happened at Teen Vogue? Does it mean, I guess it meaning what happened, mean the next generation is not going to get your great labor reporting through that channel?
Well, short answer is, I don't know. See, for those that haven't been following that particular media saga, Vogue announced, I think it was last week or the week before, very recently, that Teen Vogue is going to cease to exist as an independent website. It's being folded into regular Vogue. They laid off basically the entire politics team, including the editor versus Shawarma, most of the Black women and women of color who worked on Teen Vogue, and the only trans editor, the announcement made it sound like, if you read between the lines, it seemed like they were not that interested in keeping up this whole progressive, social justice oriented reporting thrust that we've seen and benefited from in the past however many years. It seems like they're, maybe the powers that be at Vogue are just kind of over it. They don't want to deal with all that politics stuff anymore. Though I can't say for sure, because all of the editors I knew got laid off and I don't know anyone there anymore. So I'm hoping that, you know, there's still some room to get some good stories in there. I'm gonna try to like sneak my way in, but for now, if you want to read my stuff, In These Times is really the place to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. It's really, let me just say, I'm not, I don't view myself as a vigorous advocate on behalf of magazines that are aimed at teenagers. It's just, I don't have an opinion about it, frankly. But Teen Vogue was a very, very effective channel for educating younger people about politics, about unions, about, I mean, and your writing was a big part of that. But they viewed that as their 21st century mission. It was a very different mission than the so-called women's magazines of the 20th century. And I think a lot of people learned a lot of young people learned a lot from reading you. And it's another piece of this media consolidation, media focus, where anything that could create the least amount of friction or that doesn't fit with the ownership's political ideology is at grave risk.
It's pretty scary.
It really is. It's disturbing. And that's why independent media, like the media that you all are involved in, is so critically important. Okay. This is a plea. One of our subscribers, this is our last question that we have, unless there are any others. Nushka, you can let me know if there are any others from our live audience. This is a plea from one of our subscribers. It's actually not a plea, it's a demand, I think. The way it's phrased, it's a demand. Leave us with some hope. Right? I did that in a demand voice instead of a plea voice. What's the biggest organizing drive underway in the U.S. right now that you expect will be successful? Mark, let me start with you on that. The biggest organizing drive underway that you think will be successful.
I think it's grabbing apprentices, getting those kids out of high school to come into the building trades, because right now we're losing every year. By 2030, we're going to be in a huge hole for electricians, for pipe fitters, for carpenters, for iron workers. The chance is there. Be an operating engineer, whatever it is. That is where we're happening. And those groups that I just mentioned are expanding because their size is getting bigger and their joint training facilities are taking off like crazy. There's great stories to be told there. So obviously, when all hope is lost, look to your youth, because they're the ones that are going to be the future and make a difference. And we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to make trades and make some good money.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Can I just say, in late 2024 and 2025, every building trades union was planning for dramatic growth, and I mean like huge growth. I interviewed Brent Booker, the president of the laborers union here,
a Hoosier,
3 years ago. I guess it was 2 years ago, and he said we're going to double the size of the union to 1 million members, and
he's close to that already.
Right?
Yeah,
and it's a growth industry. Now, the repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act by the Trump administration and the Republican Congress is absolutely going to hurt that. But infrastructure jobs, building all these AI data centers, AI electricity generation centers, all of that is going to create lots of jobs. There are good quality middle-class jobs in the building trades. I agree with you on that. All right, Kim, let me give you a chance if you want to get in on this. The biggest and Ruben, you too, I'm going to come to you. What's the biggest organizing drive underway that you think is going to be successful?
I don't know if it's the biggest, but it's one that I think is really interesting. It's been happening for the past few years. We've seen lots and lots of organizing among cultural workers. By that I mean folks who work at museums. It's been a big thing here in Philly with workers at the Philadelphia Art Museum, the Please Touch Museum. Right now, the workers at the Philadelphia Historical Society are working to win their union. And this is happening all around the country. It's not just Philly. I'm just a little biased. But I think it's so valuable and important that we're continuing to see workers in trades and industries that are not traditionally thought of as union workplaces deciding, well, hang on, says who? I mean, we just saw this big win from the Pittsburgh Union Progress journalists out west, who after 3 years on strike had to beat the hell out of their employers in court, but they won everything they've been asking for and demanding. They just went back to work yesterday. Like, and it's very exciting to see everything happening in manufacturing and in like retail and all these more like traditional union sectors. But I think it's just such a positive development that we're seeing so much creativity in organizing. I remember when it seemed exotic that baristas would join a union. Now it's like, oh, of course. Now it's like, okay, let's go after the museums. Let's go after everywhere. Every worker deserves a union, no matter whether they work at an art museum or an abattoir.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to interview organizers, including an organizer from the Philadelphia Art Museum, about organizing of cultural workers. And boy, the passion with which they spoke about their work and describing the what is effectively class conflict between the workers and the people who run those institutions and where the money goes.
The donors.
Man, it was eye opening. So I encourage everybody to take a look at that broadcast. It's from a year and a half ago. All right, Ruben, the biggest organizing drive that's underway that you think is going to be successful, you expect to be successful.
Well, of course, it's very long term, but I think that and I have to, of course, here represent my brothers and sisters in academic labor. I think that the Trump's moves on and the administration's moves on higher education and the sort of forced kind of compact to receive federal funds will, and of course the threats to and really attacks on academic freedom will cause more of my colleagues to become interested in organizing. I also have to represent as a member of the Nevada Faculty Alliance, American Federation of Teachers, that we've seen some blips, but there's growth in response to what's been going on. Just like we were talking about federal workers, getting more interested in organizing thanks to this administration. Again, this administration could have really big impacts on union density, and just sort of unwittingly. But really, that is, I think, the reaction that many are having, because at the end of the day, in terms of protecting academic freedom and academic labor, the backstops of the First Amendment and the whatever principles exist in the AAUP that colleges and universities may or may not follow are not going to be a substitute for actual language in a collective bargaining agreement. And so that is, I think, going to see a long-term trend, but I think it's going to be in an upward direction.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Trump board is probably going to take the right to organize and bargain collectively away from graduate workers and all student workers. And then it will go right back when the next pro-union president appoints a new board using the new tools that President Trump has given them, which means firing all the Republican members of the board and replacing them with Democrats and pro-union Democrats. So I would say, here's my prediction. The single biggest union organizing drive that's underway right now in America is the effort to organize Uber and Lyft drivers in California. I believe, I may have this wrong, but I thought I heard that there are 800,000 potential members of that bargaining unit in California. I don't know if Uber and Lyft are going to have separate bargaining units or if it's going to be sectoral, but 800,000 new union members, I'm in. There are the second, I'd say the second biggest is when the day after Donald Trump leaves office and a pro-union president comes in and reverses his executive order on federal employees, and all of those folks who had their union taken away from them will now be able to organize again. And then the third that I wanted, obviously I had time while you guys were talking to think about this a little bit, is going to be in states like Virginia that don't have public employee collective bargaining, but have a new governor. And even though, sadly, Shamefully, she is wrong on right to work and has said that she is not going to repeal right to work. I believe she is going to support mandatory public employee collective bargaining at the state and local level across Virginia. Now, there already are some workers who have unions in state and local government, but potentially all of the workers will have the opportunity to organize and join unions. Now, that's not 800,000. I think it's several tens of thousands. But in order for the labor movement to grow, or at least to sort of push back against these losses that it's suffering, there are going to have to be huge changes like that. And what I like about the Uber and Lyft opportunity in California and also in Massachusetts, and state and local government employees, and the federal sector even, is it does not depend upon the National Labor Relations Board and a badly broken federal sector labor, a private sector labor law. That law just makes it way too hard for workers to organize, and certainly to organize en masse. But there are laws at the state level and in the federal government that would allow tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of workers to organize. And I'm really hoping that we're going to see that. So I think keep an eye on California, keep an eye on Massachusetts. I think there's 80,000 drivers who are going to organize there. Keep an eye on what happens in Virginia beginning in January with public employee collective bargaining. And there are some other states. I think people are hoping that when Colorado gets a new governor, that Colorado also will move that way. So we'll have to see. All right, that's all the questions that we have. So I think overtime has now expired. Thank you yet again to Mark, Kim, and Ruben for being with us. We hope you all have a fantastic, restful holiday, and we'll see you again in December on Power at Work. Thanks, everybody. Are you looking for more labor radio shows and podcasts? Well, look no further. Go to the Labor Radio Podcast Network. The network connects more than 200 radio shows and podcasts. To find more great labor content, go to www.laborradionetwork.org. Power at Work is there. You should be too.
Public professionals, would you like to learn how data, digital innovation, and AI skills can improve your work and help you serve your constituents better? The answer is Innovate US. Innovate US offers no-cost learning on the skills you need to succeed in government in the 21st century. Attend a 1-hour weekly workshop or enroll in a course on AI or human-centered design at your own pace. It's all free to you. Visit innovate-us.org today to learn more and sign up. That's Innovate-US. Visit right now.